let's talk about now what the media want you to talk about today. They don't want you to talk about the vaccines. They don't want you to talk about the stock market. They don't want you to talk about the reopening of the states and whether the data are supporting a downturn. They don't want you to talk about any of that stuff. They don't want to talk about Trump going after the WHO. They want to talk about one thing and one thing only. Yesterday, President Trump announced he was taking hydroxychloroquine. Oh, no. Okay, so here's my view on this. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. Are you a doctor? Do you know? Here's what we know about hydroxychloroquine. In several studies, hydroxychloroquine alone has not been shown to have any power to cure this COVID-19. There was a study that came out from NYU, and it showed that hydroxychloroquine in combination with azithromycin, a Z-Pak, and zinc improved coronavirus patients' chances of being discharged and cut the death risk by almost 50%. Researchers at NYU Grossman School of Medicine looked at 932 coronavirus patients hospitalized between March 2nd and April 5th. Half were given a combination of hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, and zinc sulfate. The other half didn't get zinc. Patients receiving the triple drug combination were 1.5 times more likely to recover enough to be discharged and 44% less likely to die. If you took just hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin and no zinc, then basically there was no impact on your health outcome. So President Trump didn't just say he was taking hydroxychloroquine, he also said he was taking zinc and Z-Paks. Now, should you be taking that preemptively before you have COVID-19? I haven't seen any studies on people who are taking this stuff preemptively. I haven't, right? And I'm not sure any studies have actually been done about that. But Trump's doctor, who presumably doesn't want the president of the United States to drop dead of a heart attack on his watch, said that President Trump can take it. So I assume Trump isn't going in the back and drinking the fish tank cleaner, right? I assume that the president of the United States is actually following his doctor's advice. Now, is it possible the doctor wouldn't have advised this in the first place? Sure. Is it also possible that Trump went to him and said, listen, I keep hearing this stuff about hydroxychloroquine, and I hear about zinc and azithromycin. The people are telling me, I've heard many people, many expert people. And the doctor's like, listen, there's some studies. It shows that it's kind of effective. I don't think you have a high health risk because you have a pretty good heart. We do like a physical on you every year. You don't have a history of heart difficulty. So sure, I mean, it can't really hurt. And then Trump took it. That seems to me the most likely thing. Again, do you really think that Trump's doctors, the doctors for the president of the United States are like, Mr. President, if you want to take that fish tank cleaner, you just go right ahead and down it. And if you die, it'll be my fault. Like, who thinks the doctors are thinking that way? It's not like Trump is just disobeying his doctors and then buying opioids off the streets and shooting them into his veins. Like, what the hell are you talking? Okay, so here was President Trump yesterday saying he was taking hydroxychloroquine, and then the world ends because Dr. Pelosi arrives to talk about it, and Dr. Cuomo arrives to talk about it. Again, there are many doctors who say you should not take hydroxychloroquine to fight this thing. And you shouldn't take it alone. There's literally no evidence that if you take hydroxychloroquine alone, that is going to help you in any way. Or even if you take hydroxychloroquine with azithromycin, that'll help you in any way. There's some evidence from that NYU study. Again, I'm studying the study, okay, from NYU School of Medicine, that if you take the 3-pack, right, the Z-Pak and the azithromycin and the zinc and hydroxychloroquine, the reason this matters is because hydroxychloroquine apparently sort of opens the ability of cells to absorb zinc, which is good for fighting COVID-19. If you do that after you have COVID-19, there's some evidence that this is effective in treatment. Okay, that's all we know. I've given you all the things we know. But here was Trump yesterday announcing that he's taking hydroxychloroquine, everybody going nuts.
And you'd be surprised at how many people are taking it, especially the frontline workers, before you catch it. The frontline workers, many are taking it. I happen to be taking it.
Hydroxychloroquine?
I'm taking it, hydroxychloroquine.
When?
Right now, yeah.
Yeah, when?
A couple of weeks ago, I started taking it. Because I think it's good. I've heard a lot of good stories. And if it's not good, I'll tell you right. I'm not going to get hurt by it.
Okay, so everybody's like, you're not a doctor, Mr. President. Right, but you're also not his doctor. And again, do you really imagine the president of the United States is just downing the fish tank cleaner in the back room without the doctor overseeing it? Okay, so Neil Cavuto on Fox, he says, okay, you should not take you should not take hydroxy because you will die. So don't go ahead and do that. Again, there's a difference between the president saying I'm taking it and everybody else should take it. Okay, you should go to your doctor and ask about things before you take drugs. As husband of a doctor, you know what's the thing I do before I take anything? I ask my wife because she is a doctor. You should always ask your doctor before you start taking drugs of any sort. I assume that President Trump has done that because, again, the White House doctor does not want to be on the table when the president dies of a heart attack. That is not a good look. Okay, here is Neil Cavuto, though, informing the American people, don't take it or you're going to die.
The VA study to which the president alluded wasn't a loaded political one. It was a test on patients there and those who took it in a vulnerable population, including those with respiratory or other conditions, they died. I want to stress again, they died. If you are in a risky population here and you are taking this as a preventative treatment to ward off the virus, or in a worst case scenario, you are dealing with the virus, and you are in this vulnerable population, it will kill you. I cannot stress enough. This will kill you.
Okay, this will kill you if you take it back. Again, it may not kill you. It does raise the risk of heart attack. Okay, like that's what the studies show. It does raise a risk. It's not just ineffective. If you take it without the zinc, and without the azithromycin, without COVID-19, it could absolutely raise your risk of dying of heart attack, right? That's what the study shows. So Cavuto is not wrong that you could die from it. He doesn't say it won't inevitably kill you, okay? It's not like you take the hydroxy and then you absolutely die, but there's no benefit and there is increased risk. That is the more proper way of putting this. Then you have Chris Cuomo going off. Now, Chris Cuomo has zero credibility on this. When we talk about people who have no credibility, talk about health solutions to COVID-19, his wife literally was bathing in bleach. I'm not kidding you. His wife put out a statement. She had COVID-19. He had COVID-19. She put out like a giant statement. We talked about it on the show about all the weird crap she's doing that she apparently got from like Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop or something, where she's like, well, I took some bleach and I poured it in, I took some Clorox, I put it in the bathtub, and then I bathed in the Clorox. Okay, Chris, sit down, dude. Like, really, sit down. He didn't even pay attention to his own quarantine. He was going out, going to his second house. Here's Chris Cuomo going off on how could the president be this non-health conscious? Again, you're basically like waving dream catchers in the air and doing rain dances to stop COVID-19, dude. You don't get to talk on this.
He wins this argument. Why? Because he believes. Because he's taken a chance. Because he's strong. He's not the party of no. He's not the Democrats. No, don't take the hydroxychloroquine just in case. You stay home. You can't go out. You can't work. You can't eat. You can't live. That's where he's put the Democrats. Some of it's messaging, but some of it's more than that.
Okay, he's such an idiot. My God. This man, what adult? Seriously, what adult? It's pretty amazing that Mario Cuomo's name alone could make his son governor and Chris Cuomo gets a job on CNN. What idiocy. Okay, the best comment, of course, was reserved for Nancy Pelosi, who gets on TV and then tells Anderson Cooper, this is real news right here, that President Trump shouldn't be taking hydroxychloroquine, says Dr. Pelosi, because he is morbidly obese. Now, let me just ask a question in the aftermath of this. When is it now okay to fat shame people? Because I was informed this is very bad. Here's Nancy Pelosi saying the president, he's just so fat. He's super fat, fatty, fat, McFat, fat. Look at him. He's fat, so fat, very fat, fat.
As far as the president is concerned, he's our president, and I would rather he not be taking something that has not been approved by the scientists, especially in his age group and in his, shall we say, weight group, what is morbidly obese, they say. So I think that it's not a good idea.
So she calls him morbidly obese. And then it was like, slay queen on Twitter, right? This is the stuff people care about. Not the vaccine, not the stock market, not how we're reopening, not the impact of any of that, not the president of the United States going after the WHO, not the fact that we now have more tests available in most states than people to take the tests, not the fact that we now have a surplus of ventilators. None of that is newsworthy. The newsworthy thing is that Pelosi called Trump a fatty, McFat, McFatter, fatteroo. He's ginormously fat. President Plump was trending on Twitter because Trump plump. So, a few questions. One, does this mean that we now get to point out when politicians are more morbidly obese? Can we point that out now? Like, is that okay? Because I've been informed reliably by the media that it's very important we point out if politicians are morbidly obese because that does make a difference in terms of their overall health quota. So do we get to look at the weight of Stacey Abrams now or no? Do we get to again, I don't know, Chris Christie, are we allowed to say this sort of stuff or it only applies to Republicans? You can say that Chris Christie's a fatty McFat. But if you point out that J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, that dude needs to be lowered into the Illinois State House by crane, that apparently is very, very bad. You're not allowed to do that at all. When does this apply? I think that the rule on Twitter is that it's okay to call Trump a fatty McFat face fatty, big orange fat man. You're allowed to say that, but you are not allowed to say that anybody else is fat ever, especially celebrities, right? If a celebrity female particularly is plump, right? If a celebrity female is morbidly obese, like in bad health, morbidly obese, you cannot point that out because that's body shaming. So much so that if somebody who is slightly overweight or somewhat overweight, but not morbidly obese like Adele, loses a bunch of weight, then we have to yell at her about losing the weight. We have to talk about how it's very bad. She has undermined She's bought into society's standards of beauty. Well, maybe Trump just didn't buy into your standards of beauty, people. Maybe Trump believes that actual round oranges are beautiful. How do you know? Okay, I got to tell you, the person who's going to enjoy this most of all is Trump. Because now Trump just gets to talk about Nancy Pelosi's immovable face for the last 25 years. Like Trump, he never had any problem going there in the first place, but now the media have no leg to stand on after shouting "Slay Queen" at the moon because Nancy Pelosi was like, he's morbidly obese. Now the president of the United States is going to be like, yeah, well, her face hasn't moved in 25 years. I mean, look at her. She's like a Roman statue. There's so much Botox in there. Her face froze in place. Now, when I was a kid, my parents told me that if I made an ugly face, it would stay that way forever. Nancy Pelosi, it's the reality. Like, you know Trump's going to go here now, right? And very important stuff. Very important stuff. So we have to focus on the fact that Trump is taking hydroxychloroquine and is overweight. Very, very important stuff. Our media, man, focusing on the things that matter. Facts don't care about your feelings, and it's a fact that The Ben Shapiro Show is the largest conservative podcast in the nation. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all of our content.